Library Board meeting to order. It is September 12th, 2024. So hello, welcome everybody. Members of the public who wish to provide a public comment may do so.
Do we need to roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did jump the gun, didn't I? Sorry.
And
The minutes come next. Yeah, sorry, jumped the gun. Call to order. I'm sorry, can we have roll call?
Yeah. Chairperson Nichols,
Here.
Vice Chair Lucas,
Present.
Trustee Case,
Present.
Trustee Markle,
Present.
Trustee Olivas.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Library Board. And since we don't have anybody here, it looks like we will move on. Item number 3, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Approval of the minutes has, okay.
Do we need to do an all in?
I'm sorry, I am not here. Sorry. I had one day off in August. We're sorry. Okay. Can we get a vote? Everybody's
All in favor, right?
all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 4. Okay, discussion. Let's see. Hang on, I just want to make sure I do this right. Okay, discussion and possible action regarding the 225-230 strategic plan of the Carson City Library. I don't think I need to read the staff summary. Everybody has it in their hands. Joy, do you want to start that?
Sure. So as you can see there, we are obligated to have a 5-year strategic plan. This is imperative to meet minimum public library standards, which NRS 379.003 is what really dictates those modern public library standards as it relates to a strategic plan. So as you guys know, we did hire the University Center for Economic Development and Dr. Fred Steinman, who has been working with us since 2019. I will say that upon reflection and further consideration of this process, I realized that we're a bit behind. In 2019, we began this process. We got a grant, a competitive grant in 2018, and those funds were dispersed to us at the end, approximately the end of 2018, early into 2019. We went out on an RFP for different consultants, and you said, or Dr. Steinman's proposal was the one that was chosen. So then we began the process of conducting surveys and having public meetings to get feedback from folks from what I can glean, because I wasn't at the library in 2019, was about February, March is when we started. And then in July, the real drafting of the report began. So we're not too far behind that same kind of time frame insofar as we're about to go into the first year of the time frame of 2025 through 2030. But we will likely have to expedite some of that surveying process and selection process because they were getting proposals at this time or around this same fall time in 2018, if that makes sense. So I apologize that we're a few months behind. But the good news is, as it relates to that, in terms of our being brought up to date, is that we're not quite at a year of our last update. So our strategic plan isn't old, it's not outdated, if that makes sense. So it's required that we provide an update every 2 years, but to the state library, which then the statute says the state council on libraries and literacy, but it's to the state library that we provide the updates, and then that's communicated to the council on libraries and literacy. So we've done it every year. So we're up to date, but we do need to consider, we need to figure out how we want to do it. Do we want to continue with USAID? I can say Dr. Simon reached out to me, and I've reached back out to him. He's not able to really meet with me because he's out on medical leave for a few weeks or about a month. So he can meet with me in November to discuss where we want to go from here, if we want to continue with USAID. How do we want to start the process over? He and I haven't discussed cost, but I can tell you that the cost was just for USAID in Dr. Steinman's time was, I think, we had a grant for about 30 grand, give or take, and the cost of Dr. Steinman's time and the other associated costs was about 20. So per the city's purchasing requirements, we wouldn't have to go out on an RFP. And we do have the funds available in our budget to pay that if we chose to go forward, if it is around there. We could probably even go as far as the 30. The remaining amount was for services and supplies related. So I can't really say what those costs were. I could go back and look more closely at the actual reports that we made for the grant. But I know that a lot of the materials and whatnot that were provided were rolled into the cost of Dr. Steinman's and the USAID piece, which is the contract piece, if that makes sense. So, so what I'm trying to say is the $30,000 that approximately of the grant, not all of that money was used to pay the contract for USAID. So given that information, it's probably safe to say that it would be around the same price, give or take. I also would like to discuss with Dr. Steinman if it's necessary for us to do an update every year, because legally we don't have to. And I think we've got such a good stride going. And I can say that, and I think you guys could see as well, like moving from year to year, we didn't have a huge amount of changes from year to year. I think it actually might be more useful to do it every 2 years, to have that longer period of time and have that longer period of time to meet the objectives and see more significant changes. So that's my preference, is that however we choose to move forward, that we do our updates every 2 years instead of every year. And I personally really enjoyed working with USAID. I like their style. I like the data that they provide. I'm a data-driven person, but I know that in the past we've talked just sort of as sidecar conversations about choosing to go a different route. So, but I appreciate all of the work that Dr. Steinman puts in, and I appreciate all the data. And he's very organized. And the team responds well to him too. They're very engaged with him when we meet to go over the strategic plan update.
So on here, what is it that we should be discussing? Do you want to discuss 1 year, 2 year? Do we want to go for an RFP?
Well, really, what we're here to discuss is the process of how we want to do it. How do we want to develop the new strategic plan? Do we want to go out on an RFP, or we don't really have to go out on an RFP? I can just seek out quotes from different organizations, and we can make a decision that way. Do we even want to hire someone to do it, or do we just want to do it ourselves? They did that in the 2014 through 19 strategic plan was drafted by Tammy Westergaard, who was the deputy director, the deputy director / interim at that time. And she wrote the whole thing herself. And it's not super complicated. to do that. It's pretty time consuming on staff. And we are pretty short staffed right now, but if that's the route that we want to go, then that's the route that we'll go, and we'll make it work, and it'll be awesome. We'll put forth our best effort. But I really like Dr. Simon. I like his style. And I know it's not for everybody, but I just like all the data.
Vice Chair Lucas, for the record, I have, I started to think it, and then it sounds like you addressed it. I have serious reservations about taking it on ourselves based on our chronic short staffing.
That's so true, but the word chronic just sounds, makes
I
me
know,
feel so
but
bad.
it feels that way since
It
COVID.
will. Yeah.
I feel like that added burden might make it, we just don't have the attention span to do like the thorough job that it deserves, but it also is going to take away from some of yours and everybody else's duties that everybody's already stretched thin. So I personally think we should consider retaining somebody probably to help us with this. That's just my opinion. When I read this, I'm a little confused about like how this actually happens. It must extend 5 years into the future, and then they give you must be made current at least every 2 years, which is 5 is not divisible by 2, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
is it
no.
So
Yeah.
could we do it for 6 years because it's at least 5?
No,
it
I
has
thought
to be
the same
5.
thing,
So
and
it's
I
going to be 2, 2, 1.
Yeah, I
regardless of what
actually
we're-
reached out to my colleague at this, who was formerly the state librarian, again, Tammy Westergaard, and said, so is there any way, because this time frame is weird, the exact same argument that you made, Trustee Lucas. And she said, no. I said, well, and so I also went out and did some research on other libraries in Nevada's strategic plan development process, and a lot of them, many of them, are developing the strategic plan in the first year of the beginning year of the strategic plan.
And then 2
Yeah,
or something.
right.
Okay.
So that might be why. So we would, let's just for argument's purposes, 2025, we're drafting it, right? So then in 2027, we do our 2-year update.
Yeah, because
And then-
25 would give you your base year.
Right, right.
Okay.
And I think that's their intent, but the statute itself is pretty much what I've written there is a paraphrase of the statute. It's not, yeah.
And then as far as the cost, I mean, I think we should definitely expect it won't be the same as it was 5 years ago, just because everybody's time is more expensive. Everything's more expensive. So
Yeah.
probably closer to 25, 30, I would think. But I mean, is that something that we pay all up front? Is that all coming out of this year's budget? And then the services go that far out into the future? Or do they like progress bill us over the course of 5 years? Like how many budgets will this hit?
One.
Yours? Just the one. We paid up front and then they just continue to provide the service.
Yes. That's part of his original contract. Now, again, keep in mind, this is all based on what we've done before, but I've seen Dr. Steinman work with other libraries consecutively, and it's pretty much the same.
Okay.
Is it possible to get a quote from him?
Yes. Well, I did reach out to him and ask for that. But he is out on medical leave, so I'm sort of subject to when he's able to respond.
Okay.
But he also does have some interns, or not, some students that he wants to get involved as well. So that might mitigate our cost if he has students working on it.
And if we did decide to get other quotes for comparison or other proposals, I guess, to compare methods or see if they want to bring something different or
Yeah.
new to the table, I guess, how do you know who to go solicit quotes from? Like,
Well, there's information available as to who we reached out to last time. And then there's also so many companies and colleagues.
Okay.
I know of one I would want to reach out to, but I'm almost positive that person would be way too expensive. But I want to if we were to do it that way, I'd want to reach out. And then I would just I would speak to my colleagues and see who they've had help work with them. But I know that USAID has worked with a lot of libraries in Nevada.
Do we have anything to lose by just checking around for other proposals, even if we think that we're inclined to go back to USAID? Just to see if maybe there's like I said, a fresh perspective or something in there that catches our eye or that we think might bring something different to the table. I mean,
Time. That's what we
time,
have
the
to lose.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, he's out for a month anyway, so could
Mm-hmm.
we use that time in getting other quotes?
We could.
Trustee Case, do we still have the 30,000 grant?
We do not.
$30,000 grant coming in to pay again?
We do not. We have it in our budget, though.
All right.
This is Trustee Markle. I'd really like to see some other options. I mean, you have mentioned that there are other options out there. And I think it's worthwhile looking to see what some of the other proposals might be and what they might bring. I know that, the university has done it for, a lot of libraries, but it would be nice to see something, to just, see the possibilities of something different.
Okay. I just want to point out that if we do that, we'll discuss the options. Let's hope that we can get the proposals in by October. Then we have to come back and discuss in October who presumably, or who we're going to go with. And then that takes us up to November in terms of making a choice and executing. So I just want to be clear that we're all understanding the time frame that we're looking at, just reasonably,
And what is do we have a hard deadline?
We don't.
Okay.
But I just wanting to get it started
Yeah,
as soon
I
as
just want to
possible.
also make sure we don't end up like in default on something or.
We won't be.
Okay.
No, because I have looked into that to make sure that we're not going to get our feet held to the fire. It would probably be trickier if we hadn't just done an update less than a year ago. So, and if it weren't so common
Right.
of other colleagues starting in the year of this first year. Does that make sense? So it starts, the plans from 2025 to 2030, and we'll be drafting it in 2025.
Maybe that's
which is
why
common.
when you're at the end to give you that rolling cushion.
Right. Yeah, it's very common. And I always think of when we're in situations like this of what could we reasonably defend? It's the lawyer in me, right? That if anyone were to raise this issue, I would say, well, I would give all these examples, right, of why we're fine. And I don't anticipate that anyone's going to hold our feet to the fire, but I do want to get it started because I want to get those surveys out, and you know what I mean. I want to get going with getting information from the public because I also just really want to know.
Do we think that the proposals in addition to cost would give us like examples of what sort of, like how they would survey the public? What like, would it be kind of detailed like that? Or is
ones I
everybody going to
s-
follow the same process and it's just a cost thing and a personality thing?
I can only base this on what I saw as part of what we've done before and the quotes that we've gotten before. And some of them, I mean, I can see why we chose to go with USAID because there were a couple of others because I think we got 3. And one was, let me rephrase, USAID seemed to have the most comprehensive plan, the most frequent meeting, the updating. One of them, I couldn't really understand what the whole process was going to actually look like. Whereas USAID's proposal was very clear. And then there was another one that just, I can't say why they didn't choose that person, and I also don't know what the cost was, because in the document I found, the cost wasn't included. And again, it was just, USAID just seemed more comprehensive. It was more expensive than the other one that I did see price for, but there was a lot more rolled into it, which is, I'm guessing why they decided to go with USIT. So,
So we talked about the advantages of possibly going to every 2 years,
Mm.
because maybe we don't need it that frequent. But you also mentioned that the staff really enjoy working with Dr. Steinman. Do you think that by dropping that to every 2 years, we would lose some of like the staff involvement in the continuity that we get from having those yearly?
yeah, there's a possibility.
Processes?
Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility of that, and that's a good point. So, yeah, it's something to think about in terms of balance. So, are we going to get more? We get engagement from the staff, certainly, and that will wane just, I think, by virtue of the fact that time will have passed. But will that engagement render any significant change to justify meeting every year? So that's where we're sort of have to kind of make a decision, you know?
Why would we lose the engagement? Because wouldn't it just be that you are reporting every 2 years? I mean,
Well, I mean, they take the staff development days, right? And they have the processes that they go through, and everybody contributes. And if you're not doing that every year, I don't know. I'm just thinking about myself, like as an employee. If that was a
Yeah.
process that I did engage in with Dr. Steinman, and like we felt it was productive, we felt that we got good staff feedback out of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just their voices don't feel as heard. I don't know. I mean,
Well, I will
it's a question. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's actually a.
I mean, I
risk
could
or not.
ask the staff actually how they feel. And I will say that we do talk a lot about, we have a weekly meeting every Wednesday. Although right now we're sort of, some people come and leave early, some people come or leave late because we're balancing with the desk coverage. But we always talk about the strategic plan and tying it back to our mission and vision, and always, because if we're going to spend that much money, my perspective is if we're going to spend that much money on developing a strategic plan, I don't want it to just be a box that we check like so many libraries do. I think Dr. Markle will back me up on that it does for this. I've been in many libraries that was really what it was. And I really think it's important that we, for lack of a better phrase, not phone it in, but actually have a strategic plan that has an action plan sort of embedded in it that we can then go forth and execute. And that's part of what I like about Dr. Steinman's approach as well, because there is an embedded action plan. It's not just words on paper and then we just kind of, let it dwindle. So,
Well, you have had staff turnover in the past few years also, so it's not necessarily all the same staff. But, when you have a new person come in, a new consultant, for lack of a better word, sometimes you get different responses. And, I don't know that you'd get different responses, but sometimes just looking at different possibilities might bring up possibilities.
okay.
So I don't think that the university has done a bad job because they have done a fine job. But it's a 5-year plan that you can look at, and it's not just engaging the staff; it's also engaging the community in such a way that the community can respond in the best possible way as well.
How often did we survey the community? Was that just at the beginning, or do the refreshes do that also?
No, we did those. We did not do one in 2023, but we did. Well, actually, let me think about this timing. We didn't do one in 2023. We did one every year leading up to that, though.
Okay.
But we didn't do, it was the 2020, obviously. Everything got off kilter because of COVID, obviously. And so I feel like we could have at the library in 2022 promoted the survey more. And unfortunately, Dr. Colgrove and I didn't realize that it was being under-promoted. A directive was given and then not followed, unfortunately. And wasn't discovered until it was the end of the survey period was nearly done. So, and we didn't get our Spanish ones. Dr. Colgrove gave a directive to have Spanish ones made, and that happened a week before the end of the survey period. So that was a good lesson learned, though, to be more diligent in checking up.
So, so the strategic plan is created.
Mhm.
It includes an action plan. And then with the way that this contract was set up, then is there an evaluation piece that's also included that evaluates the efficacy of the action plan?
In terms of
In terms of,
our evaluating USED's performance, or
in terms of evaluating the goals of the action plan. So the action plan, says, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this in order to meet the strategic plan. And then, so how is the action plan evaluated?
well, it changes every year based on what we set as our top priorities and our goals. And so then we take the information as to, okay, we did this program that was falling within that fell under the umbrella of this particular goal, or because the action plan is tied to meeting those goals. If we're going to simplify it down to its very bare bones, is that the purpose of the action plan is to address those top priority goals or top priority sections, right? So then we have programs and we develop ways of trying to meet those goals, and typically that's involving programs and different events and things like that. And then we look at what the way that we did this. Were those programs effective? And were they not effective towards the purpose of meeting this goal? Like, did we meet that goal? Were these well attended? Did people walk away? Because we do follow-up surveys and stuff with our programming. Did these people walk away having met, feeling as if the library was providing better access to the building, for example, or something
Okay,
like
great,
that?
excellent. So that's part of the analysis that's included with what you said is.
Yeah, and you can look at I've got to double check because I think we haven't yet updated I'm not sure that we got the actual correct most recent update on there, because there was some miscommunication with our programming and outreach coordinator being gone and then getting a new one. And so, but I can also email you the most recent update, and you can see how all of the data was pulled in and how it was all done. Would that be helpful?
Yes, thank you.
They also bring it to us in a meeting.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
that's true. But now I'm doubting myself that do we have the right copy on there, the right version? Because I just found something on there that was an old version, and
So I just want to get back to the staff development day. So if we don't report every year and do it every 2 years, we still have staff development days.
oh yeah, for a year. Yeah.
Okay.
We still talk about these things. We just, it's not as formal. And we do trainings. A lot of our staff development days are really just an opportunity for all of us to come together. 2 of them we largely devote to talking about the end of summer. We always do one in August where we do what I call a hot wash of summer reading. So we can look at what we did right, what didn't we do, where did we go wrong, what wasn't well attended, what did we learn. And then, so for example, the one we did this last August, that's what we did. And then at the end of that staff development day, we brainstormed and came up with plans for our winter reading challenge. And so then in our February staff development day, we'll start talking about, we're already kicking around ideas for summer reading, but that's when we're really going to solidify the plan and then execute. So that's 2 of those. And then the others, we do a variety of different, we'll probably do we're certainly going to do some first aid training and probably an active shooter training. It's time for us to do another one of those. So safety training. And then we'll probably also talk about sometimes we often talk about procedures, internal procedures, in our policies. Sometimes if the staff wants to, we'll do like role playing of dealing with difficult situations. And we've done that pretty much every meeting because we've had new people. It's pretty fun. I mean, we write down, someone cursing at me. And then we have two of those and two people draw and one person's the cursing patron and the other person is the library staff member who has to deal with the cursing patron. And so then we can learn from each other. So it's always training. But there's two every year that we're going to devote to programming planning for the reading challenges, mostly.
So what would be your preference to do yearly, go back to yearly? Or, stay yearly or every 2 years?
I would prefer to do it every 2 years because I think that, and it may not make a difference in the cost, but that's certainly something to consider. But also I think it would be more effective to do it every 2 years. I feel like we'd have a larger time frame for data gathering and analysis. And we'd be more likely to see a greater, more obvious change in trend or change in community needs. So I think that would be helpful.
So we would have year 1, a base year, and then 2 and 2.
Yeah, that's what I would like to do. I think the staff will still be engaged, but I thought about that too. And I just think that I'd like to try it and see how it works. If we want to do it every 2 years or if we want to do it every year. We've done them every year, and so I'd like to see if doing it every 2 years renders us any sort of significant difference in feedback in terms of volume, and also just that ability to see a greater change in trend because more time has gone by. Because if you do it every year too, because I was really thinking about this, if you do it every year, you could miss the arc of the change. Whereas if you do it every 2 years, you can backcast and see where the change was, where the change came. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I might not be articulating that very well, but.
Well, you probably still have the statistics if you wanted to, backtrack a little bit more and say, this is exactly what want to change, or.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also every year are looking at our statistics. As I've stated, I'm a data-driven person, so I'm a little obsessive about it. But also we have to, because we do the public library survey at the end of every year, we're in the new year. And so that requires a whole gathering of all of our statistics, all of our data for the year. So by virtue of the fact that we have to do that, we are going to always have eyes on how we performed in comparison to the year before. But what's advantageous about checking it more intermittently, like quarterly, which I try to do, is so we can see what part of the year are we having a lull, Are we, and I can tell you right now, last year it was, I think, the lull that everybody feels from when you're trying to get to spring and you're just hunkering down in the winter. We see a dip there. So how do we address that? And that's something we'll have to work on.
Okay. And so what you want to do is, do we call that send in reports every 2 years?
We send in the public library survey every year, but we would meet to do an update to the plan every 2 years. So we look back at the previous 2 years and go, okay, we had these priorities. What's changed? And has anything changed? And do we need to reconfigure or rearrange these priorities?
So that's when you get together with the
Right.
council. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you were talking.
Yeah,
So this is something that would be written into a contract?
correct. Yeah.
So, it's basically your decision whether you want to do it that way or not, but to write it into a contract, then it becomes sort of, a little more concrete.
Right. So do you guys have anything that you specifically want? I mean, you know what you said does. I'm obviously going to reach out to them for a quote. is there anything that you particularly would like me, because I'm going to reach out to them and say, here's what we're looking for. We want to cover, is there anything particularly or any type of approach that you specifically want me to identify when I'm responding to their questions about what we're looking for? Or should I just say, tell us what you do?
I have
I mean,
I have
we
a
can
lack
go
of-
either way.
I have a lack of comparison, right? I'm
Yeah.
only familiar with our process because this is the one that I've seen.
Right.
Right.
You've been through this at other libraries, Joy? Or
Yeah, well, yes. Because I went
or
through
as more
it
of a
during,
staff?
yeah,
Or-
yes. I've not ever done it in a leadership. Well, we did sort of an update judge in Humboldt County. And then the Nevada Library Cooperative did one. What year was that, Betsy? We were both there.
That must have been,
20
it must have
or-
been before COVID.
Yeah, it was. It was maybe
that's when
19.
Tammy went around the state.
Right. Yeah.
So it must
With
have
Ruth
been-
Metz.
Yeah, it must have been,
I think it was 19. Yeah. So I've been on the other side of it as the staff member, and meeting with the staff and I think every consultant and every kind of process is a little bit different for every library. So does that answer the question? Yeah, it's hard to compare. I mean, we
Yeah, I
might
was
just need to be, hey, library consultant, strategic plan guru, what is it that you do?
Well,
And do we
that's-
like what you do?
What's your process? Like,
Yeah.
what can you offer us?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a really great way when you see what different people do. It is a great way to go, hey, I never thought of that. Oh, you can do that. Hey, maybe we should get that information.
And one of the things,
Especially when it's new to us.
one of the risks that you run is when you're too clear about what you're looking for, you'll get lip service, right? You'll have someone come back and, well, that's exactly what I do. All those things you just identified. So my preference would be that we sort of send it out into the ether and see what comes back.
yeah, I think it's, I believe it's particularly challenging in Nevada because we're so sparsely populated and such a spread out state, and every library area is amazingly different. Amazingly. And because, you don't really want to compare Carson City to Washoe. You can't really compare Washoe to Clark. Elko might have some similarities, but even then it's a little tricky because they're just way spread out. I would just be interested in what other libraries, what other libraries a consultant has worked with. And, we have, our unique characteristics here. We're not like any other library, and there aren't any other libraries they're not alike, which would be, if you were in a larger metropolitan area, you might have more similarities that,
Right.
You could talk about. So we're kind of in a unique situation,
Right.
and always have been. And so I think it would be important to know what other kinds of libraries a consultant has worked with.
Agreed. Because we do want to find someone, I think, and this is kind of like why we're having this conversation, so that I can sort of figure out and not even bother to bring someone. If we get a response from someone who's only worked with ginormous systems, that I'm not sure that's the right fit for us, right? Because that's a completely different process, and they function completely differently than we do, if that makes sense. So and I think it's very hard for those who have them, for a consultant, I believe it would be hard for someone who only has experience working with huge systems to dial it down to our size. Because it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but I think it's hard because a bigger system just functions so differently from how we function.
Even from state to state.
Yeah,
I mean, again, we have we have our own way of funding libraries, which is poorly done, but
I can't think of a state that funds them well, though, I mean, if
I
we're
know.
honest.
But, you can't even compare us to like Oregon, which does amazing funding for their libraries, or California. So somebody has to be sensitive also to our funding restrictions and obstacles that we encounter. It's, that it's always great to have wonderful, great ideas, but if you can't implement them because you can't get any money from the state, it's not any good.
Right. Another thing to consider is in terms of cost is that we're almost inevitably faced with receiving or having to seek out quotes from those who are not in Nevada, because there just aren't that many here. And then the cost of travel and et cetera associated with someone who's not located in Reno, for example. So that's something to consider. And then also, we need probably to decide, where do we want to cap the cost? Do we want to say 30 flat? We're not going to spend more than that. And I'll explain how we have the money. We have two budget accounts that we could pull the money from. We can pull it from professional services. We've been significantly under budget in that line item for the last few years. Oh, and by the way, and I'll have this this hard data for you next time, but I'm pretty sure we're going to come in at 80% under budget, which, because I said I wanted to be 75 to 80, and I think we're exactly 80. So that said, we'll have either money available in professional services or in contract services. And the reason for that is because of the significant drop in the cost of our ILS or our new integrated library system. So we have a budget of approximately, I think it's 77,000 and some change. And the cost of the ILS, which is, there's a few other miscellaneous monthly bills or contract bills that come out of that line item, but it's minimal. And so, for example, if we land where I think we're going to land for the end of fiscal '24, we had just under $50,000 left in that line item. So we could probably easily pull it from either of those two, and we wouldn't see a significant, it wouldn't affect our bottom line at all in terms of we wouldn't have to ask for more money. We wouldn't be strapped. I mean, we could always use that money somewhere else if we wanted to, but we can afford to pay for it without having to get a grant.
And that $30,000 out of those funds would not completely deplete those.
No,
Yeah.
no. In fact, no, because nothing is going to, will have changed.
Right.
The cooperative contract is set, so it'll be the same for the next 4 years or 3 now, which is just under $30,000, but we've got 77,000 and some change in there. So, even with other miscellaneous contract costs, we'll still have easily $40,000 in there to spend on something else, like a consultant.
I was going to say, I think that decision probably should come in when we see the quotes, because somebody might come in that we absolutely love, and they might be 45, or somebody comes in who's
Okay.
small and local and we like, and they're 20. I mean, I think that's going to be a really hard decision to make right now.
Okay.
You don't put a limit on a request for proposal kind of thing? I mean, you wouldn't say we're looking for a proposal that stays under $30,000.
I've never done an RFP with the city, so I don't know if that's part of the RFP process, is that you have to say, this is the budget, and that's that.
I think with
I
the
don't think so.
Yeah, I think with the state, you do if you have a real specific budget.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to waste their time, you don't want to
Right.
waste your time.
Yeah, I'm
your
pretty
time.
sure that they did, but I don't think it's a requirement, but I'm pretty, I haven't seen the RFP for the last time we did. But, and I'm not quite sure if it was as formal of an if it was actually an RFP or we just got quotes and
Yeah.
called it an RFP. But I think we did say, because it was grant money, this is what we have to spend.
And so then you're going to find people who go, hey, guess what? That's exactly what I charge. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to.
But the other thing to consider, just playing devil's advocate here, is that let's say someone comes back and we really like them, but they're out of our budget. But do we want to haggle back and forth with them and say, okay, well, can you cut this? Can you cut that? Do we want to spend the time doing that? Because that could be what would happen as well. If they think, oh, unknown budget, here's the Cadillac presentation. And we're like, well, pump the brakes there. We can't afford that. So that's the advantage of being very just straightforward about what the budget is. So it's really just a matter of what we want to do, which is why we're talking about it today.
Right. Well, I guess in the past, when I've seen quotes come in, let's say I have a $50,000 budget and a quote comes in for $100,000, I just set that aside. Okay, that's I mean, it could be great, but that's way over budget. And I'm not going to waste their time asking them to cut half of it out. I'm just going to continue looking at, something that's closer to my budget. So I don't know if we'll come up against that. I mean, we might find someone who's just a little bit over budget. But I think pretty quickly when they come in, if it is somebody who's going to charge a lot, it's going to be pretty obvious.
Okay. What do you guys think?
What's the number for a full-fledged RFP? I mean, if we're just getting quotes,
Oh, gosh.
50,000 that we have to go to
I think it's
RFP.
50.
Yeah, so I mean,
It's like 30 or 50. I'd have to look. You know what? Hold on a second.
so if we're
I'll
just
just
getting
go look right
quotes
now.
and somebody's at 100,000,
I
you know,
feel like I could let you know. Are you talking about the statutes, the requirements to go to an RFP?
to go full RFP.
It's
yeah.
optional if it's between 50,000 and 100,000.
That's, yeah,
And if it's over 100,000, it's mandatory.
right.
Mandatory.
But the city has, and the city's purchasing policy has absorbed, is written with that, the statute
It's
in mind,
actually,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
it requires less.
Yeah.
Like if it's under 50,000, then it doesn't have to go.
Right. Thank you. Because I couldn't remember if it was 25 or 50. So yes, so that's why I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys, my brain, I've got too much going on in my head right now. But I remember when I read the purchasing and the statute, that it started to make me wonder if we'd actually done a full-fledged RFP last time, because we wouldn't have had to. So I'm not sure if we just used that language for the quote gathering. But I want to just be clear, we don't, so now we know, we don't have to do a formal RFP. I can just reach out and get quotes. Which is much easier, right? For
Right,
all of
and it's
those of
gonna-
us.
It's going to be faster too.
Oh,
You have to
yeah,
go through
yeah, the RFP process is, yeah.
It's going to be brutal.
I mean, it's not the same as the state in terms of the, lengthy time, but an RFP process just naturally slows it down.
Right,
So, yeah.
right.
So when you are contacting some people for possible quotes, you give them a little bit of background about, our community.
Right.
So that, they have a sense of, not giving us a proposal for $500,000. So, yeah.
Well, and I think too, the more vague you are, the less, or the more that you're leaving for them to have to do and research on their own. So there can be advantages to that. Yeah, I mean, they're always going to ask for details. What are you looking for? That kind of thing, which is why I was like, well, how much do we want to tell them?
Is it appropriate to tell them what we paid last time?
They'll
Not
probably
what our
ask that.
Their expectation is this time, because probably no one's going to want to come in 3 times more than last time. You know what I mean?
Right,
But-
or significantly under. That's the other thing.
Right.
But the advantage that we have on that note is that last time it was a grant. So we can say, well, it was grant money. So that always will the subtext of that is we might not be able to pay that this time because we don't have grant money. So, I mean, there's ways, I'll just have to see, how it goes and what people are, I've never done it before. I've never sought out quotes for strategic plan consultants. So I wish I could be more, I mean, I've talked about it and I've been on the periphery of it and we learned about it in school and created an action plan. I actually created an action plan for our old Carson City Library strategic plan because it was on our website. And one of my exercises was I had to create an action plan for a strategic plan from a real library. So I have an action plan for the 2014 through 19 strategic plan. But I've never actually done it in practice, so.
Well, I know when I was doing this for the Indian Commission, it was good to be, a little vague. And I've learned that the more questions somebody asked, the more they want you to spoon feed them everything. And then they just give you a quote based on all of that. So I would give them a little information, I'm really looking forward to what you do. That's what I'm looking for, is you tell me what you do.
Right. I mean, that's what I did with my contractor who landscaped my backyard. Please tell me what you've done for others. But also, I think, in this case, my lack of experience might be advantageous because they can ask me all kinds of detailed questions and I'm only going to be able to answer so many.
So that's why we're looking for,
Yeah, that's kind of why I need you.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that what we need to do is take a vote on having her do this, correct? Do we have to direct her to do this?
So we need to make a motion.
It is up to you.
Yeah.
It's an action item to give you the opportunity to direct the director to follow the guidelines that you provided today.
So we
If
would
you'd
have,
like to, or you can leave it at the level of a presentation. But it is an action item, so.
right, it's an action item when we'd like her to do it. So then we then have a motion then?
Yes, you'll have a motion.
Okay.
To direct the library director to follow the guidelines based on the discussion that was had today.
Okay.
Or you can be very specific and say exactly what you'd like her to do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Then do I have a motion to direct Director Holt to solicit quotes and to meet, once we start the strategic plan, to meet and update every 2 years?
To be that specific, do we?
We just need to make a motion to, right? I'll make a motion to have Director Holt go get proposals to see what a cost would be to formulate a 2025 to 2023, that's a lot of 20s, 2030 strategic plan for the Carson City Library.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that every 2-year thing kind of will come with the process, not necessarily right at the top.
Item number 5, Library Director's Report.
Actually, let me make this bigger. Last time we were all squinting. Is that better? Oh, that's too big, huh?
None of us can see that anyway.
Okay, there we go. Does anybody have any questions about the general fund report? So I would just point out, sort of circling back to what we were talking about, if you look at contractual services, 101-6200-500-349, you can see what our budget is, which is the same for, you can see what our budget is, because this is fiscal 25, and that 48 includes, or that 29,436, that's our payment to the co-op. So that's where most of the expense from this line item comes from. And then, of course, you can see professional services, where we have 16,000 in there. And you can see that we've got 3,300 encumbered. That's for the professional services that we pay for that are also contracted, which is how that encumbrance is there. So that encumbered amount, which leaves us with the 16,658.16, is most of what's going to come out of that line item. Does that make sense? Because this ending amount is the budget amount minus the encumbered amount. The encumbered amount is what we chip away at every month. So you can see that we do have a lot of room for moving things around in order to come up with the funds from the general fund to pay for our consultant. Any questions? Any questions from y'all? No? Okay. So I'm going to move on to the gift fund. You're going to see this hasn't moved a lot. You'll see that the summer reading program, we're way over. And that, as you guys have experienced, and Trustee Case, you'll see as well, that the gift fund looks weird for the first half of the fiscal year because we have to do an augmentation to pull the money forward that the Friends paid us. So that doesn't reflect here because when the budget is built, the Friends have not yet dispersed the fiscal year funding. And so they do an augmentation twice per year. And so we don't actually, at that point is when I tell them, okay, here's the $55,000 the Friends gave to us, and I need it to be allocated into these different line items. So we always start out with very low numbers that don't reflect the money from the Friends, if that makes sense. So this gift card or this gift fund report always looks funky for a little. It looks alarming that we're over budget and all those things. So on to quick updates. We have selected a candidate for library assistant, and that person will be starting on September 20th, so next Friday. Then we also selected a candidate for senior library assistant. At the time of this writing, those two had accepted verbally. Since then, they have both accepted in writing. So those are no longer tentative dates. Those are hard, fast dates. So we've got a person starting on the 20th, which is next Friday, and another person starting on the following Sunday because their schedules will be Tuesday through Saturday and Sunday through Thursday.
And these are outside people?
We still do have two senior library assistant positions. One's been posted, one is open. We haven't posted it yet. And then we did make the decision to transition Amanda Conkin, who was our circulation supervisor, to collection development supervisor. Those two positions, from the perspective of the job description and title, are both librarians. So what we're doing is transitioning the role of the collection development supervisor and those duties to Amanda, and then we're going to repost the librarian with questions specific to the circulation supervisor. And we chose to do that because collection development is a harder fill than circulation supervisor. And she's been in libraries for a really long time, and she actually reached out and said she was interested in doing it, so. And where that's the collection is super important to have it balanced, and we can also, Sarah, our deputy, and I can and Amanda as well, since she was formerly the circulation supervisor, we can pinch hit on covering the circulation stuff because it's mostly just making sure that the wheels are on the bus with the operations on the ground floor, at the ground level. So that's what's going on with staffing. We're getting there. We're gonna have 2 more people next week. So that's exciting. We haven't had another reason why I started to really consider making this transition for the collection development is because we had almost no candidates for the collection development. We had very specific questions though, because we used the supplemental questions as a tool to communicate to the candidate what the job was actually going to entail. And we just, for example, yesterday we got some responses that I looked at because I was going over it again. And one person, all the questions, even one of the questions was, can you explain to us what, in a library, how you select collection materials and your experience doing that? And the answer was NA. It's like, well, then you're not going to be able to you're not a good candidate. So the circulation supervisor is a little bit more general. It's not going to be as specific skill set required. So hopefully it works out. I'm hopeful. I think Amanda's going to do a great job. I'm very excited for these 2 new candidates, and I just think that we're going to, the tide's going to turn. But we also just, I take responsibility for some of this lag because it is so important that we have the right fit and that we can work together as a team. And sometimes that requires a much more meticulous selection process. So, but I think we're going to see, I feel like, and I think the staff can agree too, that once we get these 2 folks filled, especially the library assistant, because that will be 3 people we'll have dedicated to the desk that can rotate. So that'll take a lot of pressure off the rest of us from being on the desk. So programming and outreach events. So this month is library card sign up month. So if you know of anyone who doesn't have a library card, send them down and they will get a certificate that says they got their first library card. Well, that's for first library cards, but if they're just getting a library card for the first time in Carson City, they get a free book. So they'll either get a certificate and a free book or a free book. And then Banned Books Weeks is the 22nd through the 28th. And we're going to do our off-the-shelf book club where the book club attendees choose their own banned book for that month. So it's the only book club out of the year that they don't all read the same book. And then we're going to have Banned Books Trivia, which I'm excited about because I'm excited about any kind of trivia. And then we've also got a banner, and I'll show you that on our catalog, that will take you to a list of all of the items that we have in our collection that are banned. Oh, why isn't it showing up? Yeah, of course it's not showing. Which is weird. She might be working on it actually as we're speaking. Let me see. And then we also have a display at the library of all the books that have been banned. Here we go. Well, once upon a time earlier today, our catalog had a Banned Books banner on it that you could click and it would take you to a long list of all of the items that we have in our catalog that have been banned. So you can go and choose your own banned book to read. And I would suggest that you do that. The Secret Garden's been banned, so if you want a light read that's been banned, that'd be one. So we also are partnering with the Nevada Attorney General's office for United Against Hate Week. They're providing coloring pages and a photo backdrop, but then we're also going to provide friendship bracelets and those kinds of things that people can come in and create an acknowledgement of the week. It's a new thing for us, and I think it's pretty new to the Attorney General's office too. So it'll be fun. And then, Trustee Marco, we're having an author talk. It is a man named Don Scott. He's going to discuss George Stewart's 1949 book called Earth Abides. George Stewart was one of the granddaddies of dystopian sci-fi, and this book has been wildly popular. And I don't think it's ever actually got out of print. And it's been out here in the world for a while. This is in partnership with Nevada Humanities, and then there's also going to be a hike that will be promoted that will be with Mr. Scott later in the month that's going to go over some of the different areas in Nevada that appear in the book. So it's kind of this whole like meeting of so many things are significant. The man who's presenting it is from Nevada. The book talks about areas in Nevada, and then everyone will go on a hike here in Nevada. So we're excited. I hope it's going to be a good turnout. We were Nevada Humanities was hoping we'd get attendees from Reno because they're not doing anything in Reno for it, but with the fire, they're not particularly hopeful. So 1 to 3 Saturday. Okay, good, because I want to hear. And we'll have another one. We have another one set up for October as well. So, and then last but certainly not least, we're partnering with voter advocates to have a table at the library. They did come on Saturday the 7th to help to get people signed up to register, got people registered to vote. And then they'll also come on the 17th, which is actually National Voter Registration Day. And they'll set up their table outside the front of entry of the library and get people signed up.
How many people came the first time?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask the staff, but they said they had people.
Outside?
Mhm.
This booth, I mean.
Their table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it outside?
So I don't, the staff anecdotally told me they didn't see a lot of people out there, but that doesn't, we can't always see what's going on out there. So I'll have to ask our program and outreach coordinator what numbers they gave her.
When I worked in another state,
Mm.
all the librarians were able to register people to vote at any time.
Mm.
And I know now there's people who get registered to vote when they get their driver's license.
Mhm.
But is there, and of course you can register to vote online,
Mhm.
but is there any, do you do any other?
They can, we have paper
Yeah.
applications
Okay.
that the recorder's office refers them to us, so we hand those out. Yeah.
And so people just fill it out and send it in themselves? Or, because I know, I mean, this was, a long time ago, but we would have the people fill it out and, there'd be an oath kind of thing. And then we would, send them on to the voter
Yeah.
registration.
And I think we used to do that, but now they take it themselves or they send it off themselves.
Because it's
Yeah.
so much easier to register to vote now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is just kind of trying to, acknowledge National Voter Registration Day, and then also it's an election year. So doing our part to help get people out there voting. The Summer Reading Challenge. So these are our final numbers. The wrap-up party was actually really fun and well-attended. We came in under our goal of $800,000, but we read $72,000 more minutes than last year. So 787.84 total. So I told the staff it wasn't a gold medal, but because we were in the Olympics, I said it wasn't a gold medal, but it was a solid silver. We still did really good.
I mean, that looks barely shy. We were worried
It
last
was.
month
I mean,
that it was
here's
gonna
the
be way
yeah.
under.
I was super worried, and this was a good lesson for all of us because it was literally the morning of the day before. So the voting ends at 9:00 the night before the wrap up party, and on Friday morning, so it's a Friday. Friday morning, we were at 786, and we were all like, nail biting. And so, yeah, I mean, people really do come in hot in the last week with their minutes. So good lesson to learn to not get too concerned about it. And then of course, we did talk about the wrap-up party was after our last staff development day, but we've already sort of knew what we needed to do better for next year. And we came up with our theme for winter reading and all that. And then very fun. Well, let me back up. So 3 big things happened this week. But I didn't know if they were for sure going to happen. So I don't have them in this report, but we had a wonky screen in the Digitorium, if any of you have been in there, where the Nook is, where it used to be a green screen. We had a big pull-down screen, but we also have one that's in the front of the stage. So it's like, here's the back of the stage, here's the front of the stage. We have a pull-down screen there, but then we also had this other one that was backed up against the wall. And I think it was associated with the green screen setup that we had in there. But some kids were messing around with it. It was broken, and then some kids were pressing the button to try and get it to come down, and it got sideways. And then we were trying to pull on it to just get it to go up so we would never use it again, and it wouldn't go all the way up. So facilities came and removed it. They also came and removed the big green play structure in the children's corner that has been there so long that no one knows how long it's been there. And it was just not, we weren't going to be able to clean it anymore. I've joked with the staff that the cure for cancer might be incubating in that Naga hide, but it needed to go. So they came and got it. And so it's really opened up the children's section, and we got some really cute little storage bins for the toys and stuff. So they're a lot more accessible. Plus, there's less risk of a kid falling off of it. We've yet to have anyone fall off and injure themselves more than just crying, but it was time for it to go. And the staff have been asking me literally for the last year, when's the green monster, as we all call it, getting out of here? And then the sound booth also went bye-bye.
Because no one is using it?
No, no one was using it. And it wasn't soundproof anymore. I don't know how soundproof it ever was, but I can say that it wasn't soundproof in the way that I think people would expect to do a podcast. But the good news is that the state library decided to use some of their LSTA funding this year to study pods. And so we're getting a enclosed study pod that will fit. It's almost the exact same specs as the sound booth, but it needs a power source. So we are weeding the reference section, and it just so happened that the most advantageous place to put the study pod is where the reference section is. So we weeded enough of the reference section to take out one of the middle bookcases in the breezeway, the glass hallway, and the study pod's going to go in there. And the study pod it has an LED screen, and it's a study pod, so they're pretty soundproof. And so we've effectively, I'm hoping, from what I've seen of the study pods in pictures, is removed the sound booth but replaced it with something else that's actually more conducive to studying.
There was something.
And they could podcast in it if they wanted to.
There was, I think there was an announcement in Carson now that.
The high school got two.
The high school got two of them. And I just was it was kind of funny that there was a comment, and it said, "What a waste of government money."
Oh, okay.
Back in the 50s and 60s, we knew how to study without such stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
They also
might have
didn't have
changed.
crowded schools,
Now, I think those study pod things are kind of cool. If you ever go to the Western Nevada College Library, they have some very cool study spaces that are not necessarily a pod, I don't think, but they have similar things.
Well,
It's
this
nice.
landed on the state library's radar because UNLV purchased them. And so Maggie Farrell, the dean of libraries there, had already sort of done the legwork as to how effective these were and how easy or difficult it would be to do the install. So they're coming on Monday morning at 8 a.m. to install it. But it's movable as well. So it's not necessarily movable as the sound booth was that was on wheels, so it won't be as rickety, but there's a moving kit. So if we need to move it, we can. They actually offered up a second one if people had room for it, but I wasn't sure we were going to have room for it. And so if they happen to offer the same, I think they're going to be wildly popular. So I'm maybe just wishfully thinking that they're going to do it again next year and we'll get another one. Or maybe we'll ask for it through a grant if it's super popular. It will be reservable. just as we reserve other collaboration rooms. And it is glass, the sides of it, you can see it. It's clear. So we won't have people sleeping in there or behaving inappropriately in other ways. And then also, I haven't reached out yet because I want to just kind of take a look at it, but we can touch base with the vendor about getting some sort of wrap on it with our logo or something cool like that. So that's the exciting thing. Those 3 things went down the road all at once on the same day. And now we're getting this cool study pod. I'm sure there are going to be people that, there's always change.
Oh, yeah.
It's just,
I mean, it's just kind of disappointing that people would make that kind of comment that's, 50 years old or 60 years old. Or, I mean, it's old.
Yeah, it is. At the college, in the library, one of the things that's very popular with students is study rooms. So, just big enough for 4 students or, 6 students maybe at the most, to be able to be in a soundproof room and study together. Those are very popular.
yeah. And our collaboration rooms are constantly being used, and they're not soundproof. We sometimes have to say, okay, indoor voice to people because they get, they use them for all kinds of things. And not least of which is studying, doing podcasts, having Zoom calls. So, yeah, there's not a lot of space available out in the world where you can go and do that kind of thing if you don't have the space in your own home. And so we fill a big void there. But the study pod, I mean, when I was in school, if I could have sat in one of those and not been disturbed by anyone and been by myself, that would have been heaven sent. Because it is distracting when you're, you've got a million people around you clickety-clacking on the computer. And I would say that would be my knee-jerk reaction to that person was, did you have clickety-clacky computers going on around you while you're trying to focus? Like, no.
I know. I used a study room at a library in Atlanta when I was working on my dissertation, and it was small. It was, I don't know, 6 by 8 or something, but it was a lifesaver because there were times when it's like, no, I don't want to clean the closet again. I don't want to vacuum. I need to work on this paper,
And I don't want to be disturbed by others when I'm in the
and
library.
So I
Yeah.
had to get away in a neutral space that wouldn't distract me.
Right.
And a lot of people need that.
I think it's going to be great. And so that's what's up. That's our latest and greatest that we've got going on. The programming, and that's just a highlight of what we've got going on. These are the most interesting, I think. So if you know somebody who needs to register to vote, send them our way. I think that the George Stewart talk by Don Scott's going to be really interesting as well. And read a banned book this month. But try to find one that's not so. The Bluest Eye, that's one that comes to mind. That's.
I'm reading James, which is the updated or newer version, Huckleberry Finn version. And Huckleberry Finn is a banned book.
I know. Oh yeah, all of Mark Twain's been. All of them have been banned by somebody. So that's it. Any questions for me?
Anybody have any questions?
All right.
You.
Thanks.
you.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, I would love to go on Saturday, but I've already promised my mom there's a Johnson Craft Fair going on at Johnson Lane over in Minden, so we're going to go do that on Saturday.
Very cool. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, Jill, this is an early bug in your ear, and I'll remind you again, but Bonanza is coming up. And so if anyone wants to come work our booth, our theme is Enchanted Forest. If you would like to dress as a forest fairy,
It was so much fun last night.
then come on down with us. Let us know so we can
Yeah,
get you your
last-
wings.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember now.
It was
It's the
so much
last Thursday of the month, I think.
It's the
It did.
it conflicts a lot, which is one of the reasons that we moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it conflicts
Yeah.
it's always a Thursday because it's always the Thursday before Nevada Day.
Yeah.
So I feel like it conflicts it used to.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I know we couldn't get a parking place.
Oh yeah. It's the
Yeah.
24th, I think, because the 25th we have off.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's not, and it won't conflict with, I'm pretty sure when we decided, we were like, that's why we moved this up 2 weeks, right? So we didn't have to deal with that. That was a big factor. So anyways, if you want to be a forest fairy, let me know. James is going to be, James and I, our staff member, James Wernett, we're going full Midsummer Night's Dream, and he's going to be the donkey. So,
Well, if we can't work, we'll have to come down and get some candy from you then. It really was a lot of fun. Item number 6, information only. Board members, this is your time for any announcement or request for information.
The other thing is the Friends of the Library are having an author talk on the 27th of February. Or not February.
In September?
It would be September. The 27th, they're having an author talk at the Browser's Corner.
who's the author?
Robert Drews.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Bob Drews? Yeah, he comes to the book club.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. It's 5:30 to 6:30.
I wasn't able to attend live, but I did watch the last Board of Supervisors meeting. Good job for being there. And I just wanted to, I was going to watch it again to see if I could glean any more information, but I just want to say that I was really heartened to hear they were talking about the homeless and the new laws, the new rules coming down and how it was going to affect them. And I was really heartened to hear that there were people in the audience, like business owners, who were sympathetic and wanted to help them. And the Board of Supervisors seemed to understand that we don't have enough facilities for them. We just don't have enough stuff for them. And I know they're going to talk about it again. I'd like to go in person when they talk about it again, because it seems like they were learning a lot that they didn't know about what they could and what the homeless can and can't do. And I know Supervisor White was he was aghast to learn that you can't sleep in your car.
Well, and the
so that's kind of
ADA who was present there actually reached out to me and asked for my card so that he could, because Supervisor Giommi, I don't know if you saw him, but he was, when DA Woodbury was saying of the people he was going to reach out to, kind of figure out some of what everyone's dealing with, Supervisor Giommi pointed at me and he was like, this isn't a comprehensive list of who we're going to be talking to. And so that gentleman, whose name escapes me right now, asked for my card and was like, I'm a big advocate for the library and I'll definitely be touching base with you. Because I spoke about the law and for them to consider putting something clear in the law about unattended belongings and how best to deal with that, because that's a big problem for us, is dealing with people leaving stuff. And he didn't reach, I expect that they'll reach out to me to ask about what our experience is.
Right.
So,
I would hope so. But like I said, I was very heartened to hear that they were concerned. We don't have enough programs. We don't
Yeah.
have facilities for them. And it was a conversation that seemed to get a little, not out of control, but a little bit bigger than I think that they expected. And
Yeah.
they learned a lot. And it is an issue that hopefully it's not just lip service. They are going to talk about it again real soon. And again, I'd like to go and be there when they talk about that.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. So that's my announcement.
Okay.
Item number 7, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic. We don't have anybody here, so item number 8, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do we need to? Sometimes it seems like we do and sometimes we don't. If we just want to adjourn,
There is no need to make a motion.
we'll just do this. Okay,
We're
we're
adjourned
adjourned.
at 6:55.